The millionaire watches in shock as the beggar woman calms his crying baby son. The crowd at the gala was an explosion of glitter and gold, an orchestra of laughter and clinking glasses, all eager to showcase their wealth and power. In one corner, James, the millionaire, stood brooding, tension radiating from him like waves. He was a man wrapped in his own bubble of luxury, yet here, amidst the grandeur, he felt utterly alone. His chest tightened as he heard the piercing wails of his baby son. A lump formed in his throat. He glanced nervously at the throngs, pretending to be engaged, but his heart raced at the sound. How could everyone appear so carefree when his world was unraveling? Just outside the grand hall, Maria, a woman stripped of everything but her dignity, caught the commotion. Her long hair was tangled and her clothes were worn thin, but her eyes sparkled with a fierce maternal love. She stepped forward, intuition guiding her towards the baby's cries, a calling she couldn't ignore. Inside, the chandeliers sparkled like stars, but it was the look of desperation on James's face that pulled her in. She entered cautiously, the hush of the gala enveloping her like a shroud. "Let me help," Maria was in the room. Her heart was a well of compassion, filled with stories of overcoming hardship. "Listen to me," she cooed, starting to weave tales of hope and endurance. Slowly, the baby's cries subsided, and James watched in astonishment as Maria's soothing words wrapped around his son. It was surreal, a beggar woman calming his child in the center of wealth's overwhelming display. Why did she resonate so deeply with him? James felt a storm brewing inside. Memories of his own lonely childhood surfaced. Cold holiday dinners, laughter that echoed around an empty house. Maria's eyes held a depth he couldn't fathom, a history that flickered between them, a secret hidden beneath the surface. The room buzzed with whispers. Heads turned, eyebrows raised. Judgments filled the air like fog. Some guests watched with approving smiles, imagining a fairy tale moment, while others frowned in disapproval. Sickening murmurs wrapped around James. How could a man of his status allow a woman like her so close? Each whisper tugged at the mask he wore. Should he feel ashamed? Or could he feel something deeper? Outside, the world continued, oblivious. But in that moment, the opulence around him felt like a prison, and Maria stood outside its bars, fierce and free. James's heart raced. He was grappling with emotions he thought he had buried. Maria's touch was soft and real, reminding him of what true connection could be. The rich facade he crafted was beginning to splinter under the weight of the truth. What would happen now? The gala loomed, glittering and empty. The stakes were rising, their stories intertwined like ivy on a wall, yet a chasm gaped between them. Would he dare cross it? Or would Maria's hidden truth become the thread that could unravel everything? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button down there to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And since you're here, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. James stood frozen, the weight of the moment wrapping around him. Maria's arms cradled his son like a lifeline. Her voice danced through the air, coaxing a calmness that seemed as delicate as the shimmering fabric of the gala dresses swishing about them. The crowd buzzed, but all he could see was her, The depth in her eyes, the warmth flowing from her touch. It was a heartbeat suspended in time. And then it happened. A loud crash echoed from the far side of the hall, drowning the murmurs, silencing the laughter. Everyone turned, their faces awash of confusion and worry. James's heart dropped. He instinctively shifted his attention to the sound, a dread creeping over him. The elegance of the night shattered like glass. Through the crowd, two figures stumbled into sight, their clothes torn and dirty, faces flushed with urgency. They dashed forward, breathless, eyes wild. A man, tall and angry, reached out, as if trying to grab something precious, while the other, a woman with wild hair and tears streaming down her face, screamed, "Stop! Don't let them take him!" A chill gripped James. He turned back to Maria, whose calming hold now felt like a fragile tether. The baby squirmed in her arms, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. The crowd gasped, whispers escalating into frantic exchanges. "What's happening? Who are they? Please, we need to get out!" the woman cried, her voice raw with panic. James could see the fear etched on her face, a reflection of his own rising terror. Before he could process, the angry man lunged forward, eyes locking onto Maria. "Give me the boy!" he shouted, reaching out with a frantic desperation. The room erupted into chaos. Gasps morphed into shouts. Footsteps rushed everywhere. Maria's expression shifted from calm to alarm in an instant. "No!" she cried, instinctively tightening her grip on the baby. Her fierce love shone through the chaos. James felt an urge to protect them both, a swell of bravery mixed with sheer disbelief. But there was no time. The man lunged closer, grappling for the child. In that instant, the woman grabbed a heavy vase from a table and smashed it against a pillar, shards flying. "You won't take him!" she screamed. Gasps billowed through the crowd as the glass scattered, a moment of stillness, frozen in horror. Maria stepped back, her eyes wide with recognition. "You? No." James watched, heart hammering, as the truth exploded around him. He caught a flicker of understanding between Maria and the woman, the same fierce strength, the same look of determination. A gasp ripped through the onlookers as they seemed to realize the connection too. "Maria, who is she?" James managed to ask, bewildered. His mind raced, piecing together the scattered fragments of this nightmare. The woman met his gaze, her voice trembling yet fierce. "She's his mother. You can't keep him away from us." A weighty silence fell as the truth crashed down around him. The boy in Maria's arms, his own son. Everything felt impossibly tangled, and his head spun wildly. Suddenly, Maria turned sharply, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You don't understand, James. You don't know the whole story." The crowd of wealthy elites, once ensnared by their opulence, now stood agape, witnessing a truth far more shocking than the richest display of wealth. In that moment of collective realization, James felt the twisted fabric of his life beginning to unravel. Would he be the man to shatter the lives of two women fighting for the same child? As few mingled with disbelief, the stakes had never been higher, and he was left standing on the precipice of a choice that would define them all. That undeniable truth loomed larger than any fortune he'd ever known. What would happen next? The room was a cacophony of gasps and hushed voices. A crowd, frozen in a tableau of shock. James stood there, caught in the maelstrom of fear and confusion. His heart pounded. Maria's grip on his son tightened, the baby sensing the rising tension. The anger in the stranger's eyes bore into him, threatening to unravel everything he thought he knew. "Please, someone stop this!" the woman cried, looking around for help, her eyes wild. The throng split like a wave, revealing more chaos. Suddenly, a light flickered overhead, casting ominous shadows across the hall. "Get away from her!" James shouted, feeling the heat surge through him. He didn't know why he was defending Maria so fiercely. She was a beggar. He was a millionaire. This shouldn't matter, but something deep inside him was awakening, the urge to protect, igniting. The man lunged again, anger and desperation simmering. "You can't hide him! He belongs to us!" At that moment, as tension peaked, a window shattered. But deafening explosion crashed through the gala like a rumble of thunder. Everyone ducked, screams tearing through the air. James shielded Maria and the baby, his heart racing as fragments of glass rained down. "Run!" someone shouted. The crowd erupted into a frenzy, scrambling for exits, people pushing and pulling, panic tightening its vice hold. The once elegant gala transformed into utter chaos. But amid it all, Maria seemed to awaken. There was a fire in her eyes, a fierce determination that cut through the madness. "I won't let you take him," she yelled at the man, her voice ringing clear over the chaos. "That boy doesn't belong to you. You took him away from us," the woman cried, tears streaming down her face. James's mind swirled. Taken? How could that be? Just as he opened his mouth to protest, Maria's eyes flashed with realization. She turned suddenly, and James felt a shiver run down his spine. "Wait, Maria, what do you mean?" But before she could answer, the woman shouted, "He's not just your son, James. He's our son!" A palpable silence fell over them. The world around James spun. All the air seemed to slip from his lungs. Their son? He blinked, struggling to make sense of it. Could it be true? "Tell him!" the woman urged, her voice shaking with emotion. "You don't know who you are!" James felt his chest tighten. Who he was? His thoughts raced, fragments of. His life crashing together like a storm. What had he forgotten? Suddenly, the man lunged again, but Maria pushed him back. Their eyes met, and in that wild moment, something shifted. Maria grabbed James's arm, desperation rising. "You need to listen!" The crowd remained breathless, suspended in disbelief, the air thick with tension, each heartbeat echoing. Just then, a piercing siren wailed outside, the sound cutting through the chaos. "Get out! Now!" someone cried, pushing through the crowd. And then it happened. As James turned back to Maria, another figure emerged from the chaos. A tall man, features sharp and familiar, pushed through the throng. "Stop!" he boomed, voice thunderous. "You have to know the truth." James's heart plummeted as he faced him. It was Edward, his long-lost brother. His mind reeled. Why was he here? Now? "Edward, what are you doing here?" James called out, disbelief coloring his voice. The weight of years spent apart crashed down. Edward's eyes burned with intensity, screams and chaos fading as he stepped forward. "I didn't think I'd find you like this. But we need to talk." James's mind raced, the foundations of his world crumbling. Talk? About what? This is more than just a gala. It's about family. A mix of shock and fear flooded James. They were all connected. Secrets swirled in the air like smoke. With every moment, the story spiraled deeper. As fear gripped him tighter, he realized the chaos was only beginning. What layers of truth awaited them? What revelations lay ahead? This evening had morphed into something James never expected, something that could change everything he knew. As Edward stood before him, a new mystery unfurled, leaving them all hanging by a thread. What lay beneath the surface? James's heart hammered in his chest. Edward's presence sent shockwaves through him. but the chaos around him shattered any grasp he had on the moment. Maria still clutched the baby tightly, an anchor in a storm, while the woman's despair twisted James's insides further. He felt a mix of fear, disbelief, and an odd kinship with the strangers before him, which gnawed at his mind. "What do you mean? Family?" James asked, his voice a trembling echo lost in the frenetic buzz around them. "I'm here to tell you who you really are, and what you're really protecting." Edward's words cut through the din, and all eyes turned to him, curiosity and tension mounting. "You think you know everything, James? You think your money, your status define you? But it's all a house of cards, just waiting to fall." James felt a chill creep up his spine. The weight of his brother's gaze felt almost like a physical force. "What are you talking about? Listen to me," Edward pleaded, fear mingling with urgency. "You're not just James the millionaire. You're part of this life." He gestured to the mother and woman before them. "You've been deceived, and tonight everything comes to light." Suddenly, in the thick of this heart-pounding moment, the lights flickered. For a heartbeat, darkness wrapped around them, smothering the gala's glamour. Then, with a bang, the emergency lights flickered to life, casting an eerie glow. Before anyone could react, a sound pierced the air, a loud beeping, rhythmic and urgent, like a countdown to something catastrophic. Panic surged back through the crowd. "Evacuate!" someone shouted over the chaos, their voice strained with fear. James's skin prickled. "What's happening?" he shouted, but no one heard. The crowd swirled into a frenzy, pushing toward the exits. He felt the baby wiggle in Maria's arms, confusion radiating between them. "Maria!" he said, desperation spilling from his lips. "Stay close." But just as he reached for them, a deafening explosion rocked the building. The ground shook. The walls trembled. A crushing tidal wave of panic spilled over them, and everything blurred into chaos. "Run!" Edward yelled, eyes wide with terror. But just as they began to move, a sudden flash erupted from the far side of the hall. A fireball soaring toward them. "No!" James shielded Maria and the baby, thrusting them behind him. But then he felt something slip through his fingers. The baby! Suddenly, the hand he thought was safe was empty. Time froze in that instant as he turned, eyes wide, heart racing. Maria's frightened scream echoed in his ears as she reached out. The baby was gone. James stumbled as he searched frantically. The crowd had turned into a writhing mass. Chaos everywhere. Faces blurred in horror, screams sliced through his thoughts. But then his heart plummeted when he saw a figure emerge from the smoke, a tall shadow darting away with the baby in its arms. "Stop!" he roared, fear electrifying his voice. But then, as reality pierced through the chaos, a thought crashed down upon him like a wave. The figure. It wasn't a stranger. The clothing, the stance. "Titania!" Maria gasped, recognition blazing through the haze of confusion. "Titania?" The name spun in James's mind like a cyclone. His breath caught, memories crashing into him like thunder. But how could she be here? How could she take his son? In that instant, the truth slammed into him like a freight train. The woman, the one frantically calling Maria's name, was actually Titania, the sister James had lost long ago. The sister unexplained whispers of a fragmented past had mentioned, but never fully revealed. "James!" Edward shouted, dragging him back to focus. But it was too late. The revelation shattered everything. Loyalties, beliefs. The very foundation upon which he built his life. Titania. He felt the name tumble from his lips. Desperation surging. "Don't do this! Come back!" But the smoke thickened, and the last glimpse of his sister vanished into the chaos. The sirens wailed louder now, blending with the screams, swirling urgency wrapping around him like a cold grip. "James, we have to go," Edward urged, pulling him back. But inside, something twisted. He was caught between duty and blood, fortune and family. Caught in the tempest of their lives, everything he thought he knew spiraled out of control. Titania's truth hung heavy in the air, a shadow casting doubt over everything. The stakes were higher than ever, and the chasm between them widened. And as darkness fell, James stood at the edge of a precipice, the echoes of his past promising betrayal, and the urgency of the present demanding action. What would he choose? Would the past forever haunt them, or could they reclaim the future? James stood, frozen, the panic swirling around him like a storm. The room felt like it was closing in. Maria's hands were trembling, still clutching their son, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. Edward's urgency pulsed in the air, words crashing against the chaos. "Listen to me. We have to—" Another explosion of sound interrupted, one that resonated deep within James's bones. A burst of flame shot up from across the hall as the emergency lighting flared, illuminating terrified faces. That horrifying flash left behind a thick cloud of smoke, choking off the last gasp of calm. "Run!" Edward bellowed, grabbing James's arm fiercely. But the word felt empty in that moment of mayhem. James's heart raced, and he turned, casting desperate glances around for any sign of Titania, but she had vanished into the thickening nightmare. Panic rippled through the crowd, people pushing toward the exits, shoving past one another. "Stop!" the woman screamed again, her voice alight with panic. "Help us! He's our son!" James faltered, caught in the cyclone of voices and emotions. Chaos roiled around him, but inside, it felt as though a great truth was clawing to the surface. Could he truly be a part of this? Did he really share blood with Titania, with Maria? Then a chilling sound cut through the air, more thunderous than the screams. The wail of sirens, piercing and relentless. Just as hope seemed distant, the significance of every word shifted. Something more profound was happening. "Wait!" James shouted. "Wait! The truth! What is it?" Suddenly, the air changed. The whispers grew louder, frantic. Eyes darted back to Edward, who had taken a shaky step forward, a flicker of realization crossing his face. "James, just listen." But before Edward could speak again, the walls began to tremble violently, as if caught in a fevered quake. From somewhere deep within, another explosion blasted through the hall, louder and closer. Glass shattered like daggers into the crowd, and people screamed, scrambling away from the jagged shards raining down. James felt hands on his back, shoving him forward, a primal instinct to escape overwhelming the sense of reality. But when he turned, his gaze fell upon a dark figure standing at the entrance of the hall, cloaked in smoke, silhouetted against the burning backdrop. In that haunting moment, everything changed. The figure lifted its hand, revealing not just a threat, but a glimmer of recognition. "James." The voice echoed, deep and twisted, cutting through the confusion. It was a voice he thought lost forever. "Who are you?" he shouted, throat tightening. The figure stepped closer, brow illuminated, revealing features both familiar and alien. "It's me, James. It's Luna." Every nerve in his body froze. Luna, his childhood friend, the one person he thought he would never see again, the one who had vanished the day Maria became a part of his life. The world around him shifted again, the floor trembling beneath them. "Luna," he gasped, disbelief coursing through him. But how? Why? because the truth is far more twisted than you ever imagined. It's not just about family, it's about survival. Her voice was filled with urgency, her eyes wild. As she rushed closer, James caught snippets of her story unspooling, secrets hidden in shadows, revelations of betrayal, the lengths people go to protect their own. He stammered, trying to piece it all together. But the crowd surged again, confused and terrified. Would their lives ever be the same? Suddenly, another roar of flames erupted, and she dove into the crowd, shouting, "Find him before it's too late." In an instant, chaos consumed him anew. But in the midst of it, something changed within James. Deep inside, connections shattered and bonds twisted. Who could he trust? What was real? The truth or the lies that have kept him safe for so long? Time seemed to stretch as the sirens howled louder, drowning out his thoughts. The world felt as if it could collapse around him. But one thought thundered in his mind. Why was Luna back now? And what darker secrets lay ahead? He felt the walls closing in, leaving him teetering on the edge of an abyss. What did he truly stand to lose? James stood in shock, the chaos pressing in on him like a vice. Luna was back, but her sudden arrival only intensified the brewing storm. He felt the heat of the flames and heard the screams of the panicking crowd. But all he could see was her. Memories flooded back, happy moments from childhood, laughter, secrets, but now twisted with disbelief. "What do you mean?" he gasped, trying to catch his breath. "James, listen," Luna urged, pushing closer. "It's not just about Titania being your sister. It's everything. There's something you don't know, something you've forgotten." Before he could respond, the hall rocked again. A deep rumble rolled through like thunder, a reminder of the disaster unfolding around them. People pushed by, eyes wide with terror, forcing James against Maria and the baby. He could feel Maria shaking and the baby whimpering in her arms. "Stay close," he shouted over the chaos. The sound of splintering wood echoed around them, doors buckling under the pressure of frightened bodies trying to escape. Edward grabbed James, urgency plain on his face. "We need to go, now!" But James couldn't move. His eyes were locked on Luna, trying to understand. "What do you mean about my past?" Luna opened her mouth to answer, but then everything exploded into chaos. A loud crash reverberated through the space, sending a rain of debris down. James ducked instinctively, adrenaline spiking. Then everything just stopped. For a split second, silence swallowed the room. In that frozen moment, something shifted. James caught the glint of something sharp lodged in the wall, a glass shard, reflecting the dim emergency lights. Then, from the silence, a familiar voice pierced through. "James, you need to remember." The families and friends surrounding him echoed in shocked whispers. What does she mean? What could she know? The buzz grew louder, anxious glances exchanged throughout the crowd. And then, without warning, Luna collapsed to the ground, her breath hitching in pain. Panic surged through James. "Luna!" He rushed to her side, but before he could reach her, her eyes rolled back. The crowd surged forward, cries for help filling the air. "Get back!" Edward shouted, trying to clear a path. But chaos erupted anew as people pushed forward. "Call for help!" someone screamed, but James couldn't tear his gaze from. "Luna, stay with me," he urged, kneeling beside her. Her lips parted, and in a weak breath, she whispered, "Your past. James, it's twisted. There's something we're not." Just then, before she could finish, another blast roared, shaking the very foundations of the gala. James shielded his eyes, and when he looked back down, Luna's face was slack. The life he recognized flickered, and in an instant, everything changed. "Luna, "No!" he cried, gripping her shoulders. But her eyes remained closed, the world around plunging into chaos once again. James's chest tightened, a lump lodged in his throat, panic welling. All at once, the crowd surged violently, people screaming to escape. He felt Maria's hand on him, urging for movement. "James!" she yelled, the weight of her voice cutting through the noise. "Luna!" he shouted again, but the crowd swept him away, dragging him toward the exit. Everything spun, a blur of chaos. As they pushed through, Edward turned back, resolve burning in his gaze. "James, you have to remember who you are." Those words struck him deep, reverberating as they spilled from his brother's lips. The pieces of the puzzle tumbled in his mind. Suddenly, everything twisted. "No! You guys don't understand. I lost my family. I lost Luna." But before he could process it fully, a tremor rippled beneath his feet. The building outside was coming down, panic melting into sheer terror. Just as they approached the doors, Maria cried out, pointing. "Look!" From the thick smoke, a figure emerged, tall, dark, and undeniably familiar. Titania. "Stop!" she yelled, eyes wild, voice penetrating through the din. "Titania?" James barely whispered, his heart pounding. But even as she rushed toward him, something snapped within him. "What are you doing here?" Before he could question further, the ceiling above them began to cave. In the chaos, Titania froze, eyes darting as a realization swept over her. "James, they can't know. Not yet." "What do you mean?" he shouted, desperation lacing his voice. But the words fell flat as the building shook again, a final cry echoing from the darkened corners. Then, with one last crash, everything fell into darkness. James's breath caught, his world spiraling into chaos, leaving only the crushing uncertainty. In the haze of smoke and screams, one thought clawed to the forefront. Was everything he knew about to unravel completely, like a thread pulled from a fragile tapestry? The truth was too close, too dangerous. Would they all survive to face it together, or would darkness prevail? The world around James collapsed into darkness. He barely caught Maria's hand before a wave of debris crashed down. The roar of panic and confusion seemed to stretch forever. "Stay close!" he shouted, trying to navigate the chaos, pushing through the throngs of frightened faces. But then, in that suffocating moment, something shifted as the noise blared all around them. James felt a tug at his mind, a flicker of memory just out of reach. The weight of Luna's last words echoed like a drum. "There's something you don't know." What was it? What truth lay buried beneath the surface, hidden even from him? "Get out!" Edward cried, breaking through the murmur standing behind. But urgency was overtaken by something else, something palpable in the air. The temperature dropped, something darker creeping in. Then it happened. The ground quaked beneath them again, a vicious tremor. James barely steadied himself, but then he saw her. Titania was back. Her wild eyes glowed with a fierce energy that stopped James in his tracks. "Titania!" he gasped, confusion and fear fighting for space in his chest. "James, you need to listen!" she cried, stepping closer. There was a desperation in her voice, a plea that cut through the noise. Before he could respond, another explosion rocked the hall. A deafening sound that sent shards of glass raining down like lethal confetti. A sudden rush pushed them back, and James felt a surge of adrenaline kick in. "Move!" Maria shouted, her voice slicing through the chaos. But he couldn't look away from Titania. "Don't trust her." Luna's voice rang out from somewhere behind him, despair coloring her tone. "She's not—" But it was too late. James's vision blurred as he turned. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from Titania, blaring brighter than a million suns. The room swallowed it. A cloud of smoke, dust, and screams surged like a tidal wave, engulfing everyone. James grabbed at Maria, but she stumbled back, eyes wide, face pale. "James!" Titania shouted, but the sound was drowned out by the chaos. In that instant, everything shattered. Reality warped. A different scene unfolded in front of him. Lights flickered, and he saw glimpses of another life. A child playing, a family gathering, whispers of secrets exchanged. His breath hitched as faces swirled, people who looked like him but were not him. "What is happening?" he shouted, heart racing. And then everything went still. Titania's gaze pierced through the haze. "You don't understand. You were taken. The truth." But before she could finish, the light burst back, and the visions shattered like glass, falling to the floor. In horror, James realized what he had seen. Alternate moments, new lives that could have been his. But how? What did it all mean? The ground shook again, and the walls began to crack. James felt bile rise in his throat, shaking him to the core. "What are you?" he cried, fear clawing at him. "What kind of game is this?" Titania opened her mouth to speak, but a deafening roar cut through everything. James spun around, just as a shadow unfolded from the smoke. It was Luna, emerging with an undeniable force. "No, stop!" she screamed, raising her arms. But it all happened too fast. In that heartbeat, Titania lunged for Luna. But James reacted instinctively. "No!" he yelled, rushing between them. A blinding flash erupted again, engulfing everything in an explosion of color and light. And then, in a moment of sheer terror, everything turned dark. When the lights flickered back on, James opened his eyes, stunned and lost. The room was empty. No one was around. He was alone. A heavy weight settled in his chest. Was this real? Had everything he just witnessed been nothing but a fever dream? Or had he been forsaken? Suddenly, doubt racked him. The ground felt unsteady beneath his feet. The truth felt close, yet so far. How could he discover the real story when he barely knew himself? In that moment, enveloped in silence, he understood this was just the beginning. The real storm was only just gathering, ready to unleash its deadly secrets. James was stunned, standing in the dim aftermath of chaos. The air was thick with smoke, the smell of burnt fabric and fear wrapping around him. "What just happened?" he murmured, heart pounding, pulse racing. He blinked, trying to make sense of the silence that smothered the panic. Where was everyone? The faces, the screams, they had all vanished. Where did Maria and Edward go? He grabbed at the last lingering fragments of recognition. The shouts echoing, the chaos of fleeing bodies. Could it all have been real? A soft whimper broke the silence. James spun around. There, just a few feet away, lay Luna, gasping for breath, pushing herself up on shaking arms. Her face was pale, and behind her eyes swam something desperate. Every instinct urged him forward. "Luna, are you okay?" He felt a wild rush of protectiveness, but she shook her head, fear evident on her features. "It's not over," she gasped, her eyes darting behind him. "You don't understand. They'll come for you. Who will come? What are you talking about?" Panic surged again, heart racing against the weight of her words. But just then, a loud crash resonated through the empty hall, drawing his attention. The sound was cut off by a chilling silence, followed by heavy footsteps approaching. Every instinct screamed for him to flee. But there was Luna, her eyes wide, desperate. "James, listen," she urged. "I never wanted this. I had no choice." "What do you mean?" His confusion sharpened. What choice? What had she done? As the shadows grew darker, a figure stepped forth from the swirl of smoke. A tall man with a cruel twist of a smile. Behind him, shapes loomed, flickering like dark thoughts. "Ah, James," the man spoke in a low, mocking tone. "We finally found you." James's stomach dropped, recognition hitting him like a freight train. "What do you want?" he demanded, grounding himself. "The truth, dear brother," the man said, his voice silkily smooth, eyes glinting like knives. "Your precious sister was never meant to be lost. We're here to reclaim what is ours." "What?" James whispered, the reality spiraling. "Brother?" "Yes, I'm Alex, and welcome to the family reunion." The world shifted under his feet. Alex? How could this be? Against everything he thought he knew, everything he'd held tight, James felt a knot twist, hard and unyielding in his gut. Could this really be happening? "We'll explain everything, but first, your loyalty is required. James, are you with us or against us?" Luna gasped, scrambling to her feet as James felt the ground beneath him shift again. "Don't listen to him," she shouted, fear fueling her words. "They'll manipulate you." But the truth crashed down like a wave. Every piece fell into place like a twisted puzzle. Memories flooded back. Alex, the family tension, the feeling of being abandoned. The deeper connections twisted and turned. "Shut up!" Alex spat, eyes flashing. "You had your chance to join us, but you chose to disappear." "No!" James shouted, a pulse of anger rising from deep within. He felt the weight of every secret, every hidden moment bearing down on him. "You don't control me." But the shadows grew closer, and for the first time, fear cut sharp. A sick realization sank in. This confrontation was more than a simple fight for truth. It was a battle for his very soul. In that heart-stopping moment, the fire burst back to life, ignited by a flick of Alex's wrist. Flames licked hungrily, and James felt the heat crawl under his skin. "Choose now!" Alex shouted. "Join us or die where you stand." Time slowed. James's heart raced as he battled the reality of his decisions and the weight of betrayal. Could he trust Luna? Could he trust himself? In that split second, the world went black again, and a flash of memory jolted through him. Flashbacks of a family he thought was gone. Memories surfacing like ghosts, twisting lives into an unbreakable union. "James," Luna pleaded, eyes wide, "I can help you." But before she could finish, the shadows swept past, engulfing her in darkness. "No!" James yelled, reaching out. But it was too late. The floor shuddered, and in the confusion, everything began to crumble. What just happened?" he gasped, lost as everything he knew twisted around him. Reality spiraled toward utter chaos, leaving him to navigate a shattered world that felt cleaved at its very core. The stakes had never been higher, and now he was left standing on the precipice of a choice that felt monstrous. In the smoldering darkness, one thought hung in the air. What lay behind the truth? And what if the story was never his to tell? James stood in the thick cloud of smoke, heart pounding, thoughts a jumbled mess. Everything felt wrong, as if the world had turned upside down. Luna laid on the floor, breathing heavily. The weight of Alex's words pressed down hard, and in the chaos, time felt stretched to the breaking point. "What do you want from me?" he shouted, voice cracking with desperation. But Alex just chuckled, that sickening grin never leaving his face. "Join us. Remember who you really are. This is your destiny." James felt a shiver run down his spine. Destiny? All he wanted was to protect Maria and the baby. To figure out this twisted family mess, he turned to Luna, her eyes pleading but fierce. Don't listen to him! James! He's lying! Suddenly, the shadows lurched, as if they had a life of their own. Panic rippled through the fractured crowd as chaos swirled around them. The flames flickered dangerously close, and the air thickened with the smell of smoke and fear. It felt like being caught in a nightmare that wouldn't let go. "Get back!" Luna yelled, stumbling to her feet, eyes wide with determination. But then Alex smirked, a terrifying calmness about him. He pulled a small object from his pocket, a glint of silver, catching the light like a blade. "I think it's time for some clarity." James frowned, ready to dash forward and shield Luna. But in a blink, Alex hurled the silver object at the ground. A blinding flash erupted. Bright, hot light swallowed everything. A violent explosion of colors. James dropped to the floor, hands covering his eyes. But when he opened them, the world changed. The location shifted, and he wasn't in the gala anymore. A dark, cold room surrounded him, the walls suffocatingly close. There were symbols etched everywhere, pulsating with some strange energy. James stood there, heart racing, confusion flooding every inch of him. "What? Where are we?" he gasped. Panic washed over him, but Alex's voice twisted through the cold air. "Welcome to the real world, brother." The sudden realization crashed over James like a wave. "What do you mean, brother?" From beneath his feet, a tremor surged, and images flickered behind his closed eyes. Memories of laughter, of shared moments he had forgotten. A giant sliding door burst open, and figures flooded in. Faces from his past. Faces he thought were lost to. Time and heartache. "James!" The voice rang out. It was his mother. But she was younger, vibrant. How could this be? Confusion twisted in his gut as he stared. "Mom?" he whispered, lungs tightening. "James, we need to talk," she said, her voice steady but edged with urgency. "There's something you must know. It's about our family." In that moment, everything shifted again. His mother reached out, pulling him into a hug that felt like home. But as she embraced him, a shriek tore through the air, a horrifying sound that didn't belong in this. "No!" Luna screamed, eyes wide, staring past him in horror. When James turned, Alex's expression had darkened, changing from mischievous to something far more sinister. "You really shouldn't have done that," he said, voice low and cold. Then he flicked his wrist again, and shadows erupted around them, swallowing his mother in an instant. "Mom!" James cried, reaching out, but it was too late. She disappeared into the dark void, leaving him gasping for breath, words stuck in his throat. Luna stumbled back, eyes wide with terror. "James, we have to get out of here." "But," he stammered, sinking into disbelief. "Trust me," she urged, pulling him toward the door. But Alex's laughter echoed chillingly as the shadows slithered closer, wrapping them tighter. "Family or illusions? Choose, James." Darkness danced around him, chaos bubbling over, tearing apart everything he believed. And in that moment, everything turned upside down again. While James fought against the darkness, the weight of a crushing reality pressed down. Alex, Luna, his mother, all tangled together in a web of lies and secrets. Who was he really? As the darkness moved ever closer, something screamed inside him. A single thought surged forth. The truth was more horrifying than any family reunion he could ever face. "Run!" James shouted, grabbing Luna. The shadows pursued, hungry for answers, but his heart raced with something else. fear, fury, and a need to find what lay beneath. And just as they broke through the door into a blinding light, James felt it, the pulse of hidden truths coursing through him, a power yet untapped. What if he wasn't just caught in someone else's game? What if he could change everything? As they burst forth into who knows where, the question loomed, a heavy weight on his shoulders. What did it mean to truly belong? The shadows wavered behind, leaving a lingering chill. An uncertainty gripped him. The worst was yet to come. James and Luna burst through the blinding light, fear propelling them forward. The heat of the explosion still lingered in the air as they stumbled into an unfamiliar alleyway, bricks, damp, and worn from age. The distant sounds of sirens echoed, but here, the noise was muffled, trapped within the shadows. What just happened? James gasped, chest heaving. The memory of Alex's mocking grin haunted him. Luna glanced around, her eyes darting, breath quickening. "We need to keep moving. He won't stop until he gets what he wants." Panic thrummed between them. What did Alex want? And how deep did this family bond run? "Do you think they're okay?" he asked, biting his lip, the worry gnawing at him. "Maria, Edward, would they be safe?" "They have to be. We can't give up on them," she insisted, strength lacing her voice, pulling him back into reality. They turned a corner, the alley opening into a small street lit by flickering streetlights. The world outside was cold, almost mocking the warmth they had just escaped. "I remember," James murmured, piecing together the fragments that had once felt like dreams. "Mom, she wanted me to find out. But why was Alex so desperate?" Luna shook her head, frustration sparking in her eyes. "There's something bigger at play here, something we don't fully understand." As they hurried down the street, voices echoed behind them, drawing closer. A chill crept down James's spine. "We can't stay here," Luna urged. "We have to get to the old theater. It's where we met last time, away from prying eyes." But as they approached the theater's entrance, a group loomed ahead. Figures in dark clothing, shadows bent forward, blocking their way. "Well, well, look who we have here," a voice sneered. Alex stepped forward, smirk plastered on his face, eyes glinting with a cruel light. "Did you really think you could escape?" "Get away from us!" James shouted, taking a step forward, heart racing. He could feel Luna's fear beside him, but in that moment, something inside stirred, a flicker of defiance. "Why are you doing this?" he pressed, confusion and anger battling within him. "This isn't just about being family. You're hiding something." Alex laughed, a harsh, hollow sound. "You're right. This is bigger than you could imagine. But the truth isn't meant for the faint-hearted." As Alex lunged forward, the ground shook again. With a surge of adrenaline, James grabbed Luna's hand. "Run!" They dashed around Alex, narrowly escaping as the shadows danced hungrily. They sprinted past the old theater into a waiting car, its engine idling. "Drive, just drive!" James yelled at the driver, heart pounding like a war drum. The city flew past them in a blur of lights and sounds, the tension coiling tighter within the car. James turned to Luna, searching her face. "We can't let him win." "I know," she replied, determination shining in her eyes. "Together, we'll uncover the truth." But with that, the weight of their journey settled in. Where would it lead them? What horrors awaited? Families could be the greatest threat or the deepest bond. They were both. As they sped away, the darkness of uncertainty loomed behind them, but with it, a flicker of hope burned bright. Maybe they could be stronger together. Who knew what lay ahead? Just then, Luna squeezed his hand. "Whatever it is, we face it together." James nodded, resolved, as mysteries danced in the air around them like fireflies. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know about this incredible conclusion. And don't leave the channel yet. Click on the exciting story at the end of the video to dive into another thrilling adventure that awaits. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait one more second. End.